Hi, this is Rico with Maker Code, and on today's episode, I'm going to go over the LeRobot and the fixturing I created to mount it onto my workstation that is easily movable and also not extremely expensive. To do it, I use aluminum extrusion here, and then another bar is off to the side, and then there's a bar that comes up that holds the webcam. So how can you do all this with limited tools? First, you're going to start by buying the aluminum extrusion, and they usually come in two different colors, silver or black anodized. Usually the pricing, the black anodized is slightly more, but not very much more. So you'll need those. Next, you will need some of these basically nuts that go inside each one of these rails. And there's two different versions usually you can buy. These ones are a lot cheaper, but they're a lot harder to work with. And then there's these guys that have a ball at the bottom. So at the bottom, there's a ball, and that ball allows it to stay locked into place. So when you're sliding things around, there's also another kind that's a spring here instead of a ball. But I prefer the ball ones over the spring ones when I'm trying to work with this aluminum extrusion. You'll need some screws of varying lengths. This specific screw hole is an M5, and this aluminum extrusion, you can buy them in different sizes. So here, the thickness here, this is considered a I think this is a 2x4, so 2 millimeters by 4 millimeters. But you can do square shaped ones, you can do rectangular ones, you can have ones with multiple sets of rails in them. I have a lot of different versions in different sizes. You can get 4 millimeters, so a lot thicker and a lot beefier. And those are things like your sim rig or any tooling and stuff like that. You may go with the bigger size. You will need also angle brackets, and usually there's two different types of angle brackets you can get. There's going to be the traditional angle bracket, and it would just sit on here like this, or the hidden angle bracket that looks like this. And what that one will do is it slides in, and one side it allows it to slide all the way through, and then the other side it usually stays locked into the corner. So this will allow you to make an angle, this a little over, a 90-degree angle like so. And one of the benefits of that is you get a hidden pocket. Or in my case, if you look here at this specific angle here, I have two aluminum extrusions right here. And the distance in between the extrusions is limited. I can't fit one of these angle brackets in here because it won't fit. So that is where I'm forced to use one of these instead in this spot. Now, I don't like using these angle brackets, and I'll go over why. So at all costs, I try to not have to use these. I'm not too worried about showing the angle bracket, but there are cases where you are forced to use them similar to this situation. Okay, so how do I do this? I basically mounted the LeRobot right on top. Boom, the base. I don't think I have any more bases laying around. No. I don't see any more bases. But you can imagine a base like here, it would sit on here like this. And to line up these two holes, I had to space them out so that they would fit. On the other end, there is another bar that sits here on the side, like so, and they're both attached to this. So if I grab another piece, yes, a short one. I'm basically in this situation like this. Okay, so then I put an angle bracket here, and in this case I put an angle bracket in like so. Now the reason why I don't like using these angle brackets, the specific kind, is once you've put them in, you are locked into having them there, so that if you were to want to adjust this, those. So if I have this scenario where I've screwed this in right here, and then I lock this one into place with this, if I only wanted to work on this angle bracket, I don't have enough room to get to it. I would then have to remove this whole bar just to get to that screw. And there are cases where then this side is also locked down, and so you can't just easily remove this, so you're going to have to disassemble a lot of things, where usually in these cases the angle brackets are always exposed, so you can always get to them pretty easily. So if I wanted to remove this, I remove the 2 screws here. On the opposite side, I remove the 2 screws, and this piece can come off. So I'm not a huge fan of using these angle brackets, but there are scenarios where they may come into play. Okay, so how do we screw these into here? There are 2 different types of bolts you can use. So let's see here. So the first one, the cheap ones, usually when you buy a kit, these will come included. So again, it's just a screw and a nut. So it goes in, you can then slide it in, and then as you are turning it, the nut inside rotates 90 degrees. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can just show it this way. But it will rotate 90 degrees. So I had it upside down anyway. Okay, so it slides in, and then as you're turning, the inside nut will rotate 90 degrees as it gets tighter, and you want to make sure it does rotate 90 degrees, and then it locks itself into place. So you can see how it rotated 90 degrees in there, and it locked itself into place. Now, I'm not a huge fan of that though, because it's not fully seated at 90 degrees. And then the bigger problem you run into is, well, there's this also, but when you are working with it and you slide it into the position you need, so you say, I need it right there, and then you bump it, it moves around. So this is a common problem where it will keep moving on you. And that gets really annoying, especially if you know you need it right there, you've slid it right to the position, and then you bump it and it starts to move around. So I prefer to use these ones. These ones have a ball, so they just slide in same way as the other one, like so. And then you screw it in just like you were doing before. If you want, you can move it, and it won't budge at all as far as moving it around. So really nice. I like using those. Really helpful. Okay, so the next thing you can do with these also is, say this was in a position where it is blocked on both sides. So it's blocked on both sides, and you can't just slide it in because you don't have access to both edges. Right? So it's like this. Both edges are now stuck, so there's no way to just slide this in. The nice thing about these also is you can put them in at an angle. It's not the easiest thing, but it does work. And what you want to do is try to get that lip to just move over. And sometimes you rotate them around 90 degrees and it works. It is the one thing that is always annoying about doing it this way. But I usually use a zip tie if I'm really desperate. And that is just so that I can get it in that hole to get the other side to lift up. So you can see that it is in there, and you could also remove it if you're desperate by doing the same thing. Removing it is usually a lot harder than putting it in, but not impossible if you really need to remove it. And then it pops out. So again, really what it is when you're dropping this in, kind of rotate it quickly so that the lip doesn't get caught up on the edge. So it's caught up on the edge right now, and the zip tie trick is just to pop it just a little bit up. So once you popped it up, then it just goes right in. Okay, so for this one, we'll do the 90-degree angle facing up just so you can see it better, but that just sits here like this. And then with a smaller screw, you would screw it in. Same thing now for the bar here. Take my Allen wrench, and I'll put a link in the description for all these parts so you don't have to go and look for them all, because that is the most annoying part. But you screw it in and it's locked in. When you get it to the exact spot, you torque it down, and now we're locked in. So say you wanted the 90-degree angle this way, you would just slide one of these down into here, like so. And screw it in. So you would then screw it into here. So pretty simple. And again, when we were doing it though, we were doing it this way. So one here, and that way I can have the arm base sitting in there, like so. Okay, and then you would do this one, same thing, slide that in. You have to use one that allows you to slide it around, and then put the arm in here, and then these have screws here. They're actually little pins that you lock in there, so they're like little lock-in pins. Okay, so that will get you the base, and you can buy these in pre-cut lengths. So if you know a distance that you would like for these, you can get the exact length already pre-cut, and they come in small to really large, usually 1200 millimeters long is the longest you'll see on like Amazon or eBay. But if you were to order them from like a more industrial place, then yeah, you can get them in really long lengths. And then there are also other places that just you give them the plans and they'll cut everything for you automatically. They'll even assemble it if you want, but they'll cut it all to the exact lengths you want, so you don't even have to use a saw. But how would you cut these? There's a couple different ways. The quick and dirty way is to get one of these. Get a nice cheap hacksaw, and you get one of these little bracket mount things. And these are used, I think I got this one specifically at IKEA, but they're just used to either cut at a 45-degree angle, like picture frames or something, or your door frames, or at 90-degree angle. And you just sit there and you cut with a hacksaw. This aluminum is also very soft. And what I mean by soft is it's basically equivalent to cutting wood. So these are pretty much equivalent to cutting wood. So any general purpose chop saw or bandsaw, or even a circular saw, or any saw should cut through this no problem. Just take it slower. You don't need a lubricate or anything. Like I said, extruded aluminum is pretty soft. So usually any of those blades that can cut wood can cut through this no problem. Or if you really wanted to, you can use a metal blade. You can even use a jigsaw. Most common way on a jigsaw would just be clamp this down so you have a straight edge, and then you can cut. Even if you're not perfectly straight, it's only on the edges. On the edges, it's not going to matter. There's no precision on the lengths here. You just need to get the spacing right here. Okay, now the last piece is, how did I get this webcam mounted? So I have this webcam mounted here, and the way I did this is you can take any cheap webcam. So unravel this, and usually all these cheap webcams have a little mounting hole on it. So there's a little mounting hole. Then you take a ball joint. So these are for any camera, cheap or nice ones, it doesn't really matter. And they have the screw hole on the bottom, and then they would screw onto the bottom here. And then the last thing is again, I used a bunch of angle brackets to hold it up, and I used what they call a T-slot nut, or these are used in woodworking usually, and they have little tracks on their table, and then they can use these to mount it down onto the table tightly. So these just slide right into the grooves, and they are threaded. So you can get these in all different lengths. And so what I did is I got a through hole, one of these star nuts, and I made sure that at the very least there was enough room so that it sticks out, so that I can put the ball joint on it. So the length doesn't have to be perfect, because again, this has a maximum that it can accept. So just make sure it's long but not too short, and you slide it into place, and then you thread this star nut on there. So now it's nice and tight, it's not going to move. If I did want to move it up or down, I would loosen it, and this one I've kind of gotten loose or tight, but you can then slide it. Say you like it in this position, lock it in, and you're good to go. Then you're going to thread on your ball head, and this will just allow you now, as you loosen it, to get all different types of angles on your webcam. So that's what this would do for you. And then you thread your webcam on, and most of these webcams come at like an angle, so they're not just sitting flat, and that's why the ball joint helps a lot. My only suggestion here is do not tighten this portion too tight, because you will start pulling out the insert that's in there that's holding it. So when it's good and tight, you loosen this up, and this is where you can make all those adjustments. So now I can lift it up higher, lift it down lower, angle the webcam, and now my webcam is pointed down, looking at the table. And that's basically it. After that, you just care about, some people like to have this arm further away, so their environment is clean. but as long as a webcam doesn't see it, you're usually okay. And I like to be close so that I can duck my head down to actually see what's going on, because some of these things that I'm trying to pick up, whether they're something small like this or a bolt like this, sometimes I have to kind of maneuver around, and I want to see as I'm maneuvering what's going on. So if I had this at another table or somewhere else, it makes it a little difficult to see what's going on right here at the table. So having it close by but not sitting right on top of it and outside the view of the webcam is more than enough. Again, you can buy a longer aluminum extrusion. You can even combine these aluminum extrusions. So there are just little plates that you could buy that are just here. So 2 bolts would be here, 2 bolts would be there, and you can then have it move around or make it longer that way. So don't worry if you're too short. There are plates that allow you to just combine them to make them longer. So if you can't afford to buy one really long one, or you weren't sure, you can buy a long one and then buy a short one and then combine as needed and then cut if you absolutely had to. Again, even if it's sticking off the table, it's not a huge deal. That part's not important to you. But that's the aluminum extrusion. Like I said, they come in all different shapes and sizes. Here's a 40 millimeter bar. So this one is just one set of rails, but these are a little beefier, so like making tables and stuff with them. Then you can have ones that have 2 slots, 3 slots. Yeah, they come in all different sizes. But I think the 2040, which is what these are, is more than enough. Not too big, not too small, easy to cut. You can also thread these holes if you want to put screws in here. I also have these caps that I put on the ends. I can't pop them off now, but and they're just there to just keep it sharp edges, so my kids and stuff, when they touch it, they won't hurt themselves. But yeah, you can have a way of tightening these down here so that they can be easily removed using something like this. I do know that you can only put them on the back side, because on the front side the arm does move and hit them. So there's the height of these front screws is important. So when I ordered the screws, I made sure they were pan head flat so that they sit into the cavities. And then after that, I just used some of these clamps just to clamp it onto the table so it doesn't slide around. Nothing special. You can buy these at Home Depot or on Amazon, and since they're flat, they're nice and easy. And then again, I can unclamp these, move them around, and then I can have the tabletop back if I needed it. So hopefully that helps, gives you some ideas on what you can do. I'll put the link in the description of all these different parts so that you can easily find them. And then you'll have a movable base for your LeRobot to do some testing, and you can feel like a real engineer using aluminum extrusion, because yeah, that's kind of quick and dirty ways to make fixturing. When you're done with this project, or if you want to upgrade or do some different things, the extrusion can be reused for other projects also. The cutoffs can be used for other projects also. So lots of additional things you can utilize with this aluminum extrusion that you may see in the future. It also is a flat surface, so you can use it as a straight edge for anything, especially like if you're cutting. So yeah, lots of things you can do with this. And then other ways, like I said, was for tooling. They'll embed this into the table, and then they have a nice way of locking things down. If you like that, please like and subscribe as usual. I have not posted recently because I've been working on something else, a woodworking project. My wife acquired a table on Buy Nothing, so now I have a small table that I'm converting into a gaming table. So the tabletop, you can remove it, and inside, my kids do Legos all the time, have all the Legos hidden inside there. They can do their Legos. I can have little trays and stuff like that. And then when they want to use it as a table, just put the top back on Legos and where they're at, their progress isn't bothered. So hopefully that helped. And if you have any other questions, always leave a comment. I always answer them. But yeah, have a nice day.